Hi, this is Tina Powell, host of In the Suite, where I sit down with top women leaders and some of the biggest names in the financial services and the wealth management industry. Together, we'll discover some of their best secrets and top strategies to grow a great business, build a strong brand, and lead teams in the 21st century. I hope you'll enjoy hearing their amazing personal stories of triumph, trepidation, and transformation in hopes of becoming better leaders ourselves. The time for you to lead is now, and you're in the suite. Velera Wilson is speaker, author, and coach who spent almost 20 years leading marketing strategy and driving revenue for Fortune 100 and 500 brands. Now she helps ambitious women lead with confidence in their career, relationships, and everyday life. In her new book, You're Absolutely Worth It, Release Self-Doubt, Embrace Confidence, and Own Your Yes, Velera Wilson gives women the pep talk and fuel to stop guessing themselves and boldly ask for and go after what they really want in their careers, relationships, and everyday life. You're Absolutely Worth It offers inspiration and practical advice for the woman who's ever struggled to believe she was good enough for her dreams and goals because of where she's come from, what she's experienced, and how she sees herself. From her latest book, You're Absolutely Worth It, to being a contributor writer for Thrive Global on women's issues, to publishing guides including 6 steps to negotiate the salary you deserve without letting fear override, Velera shows us how to own our worth. A big believer in paying it forward, she served as a mentor to women through the American Marketing Association, National Black MBA Association, and others across the country. She resides in Atlanta with her husband. And one of the many gifts that you'll discover about Velera is her ability to lift other women up and empower them to control their own destiny. Whether through coaching, speaking, mentoring, or marketing, Velera has the power to create change and positive transformations in other people. As she puts it, am I in the driver's seat of my own life, or am I going to give someone else the key? You're Absolutely Worth It is a loud call to every woman to believe in her voice, her value, and her gifts, giving actionable insights on how to do it without reservation in the suite. Velera Wilson, welcome. Take a seat in the suite. It is awesome. It is great to have you here today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Tina, for having me. I'm excited to join you today.
I'm so excited that we're here. It's an auspicious day today, and you and I set this date, I think, months ago, right?
Yeah.
And when we set the date, normally podcast recordings are on a Friday anyway, but today marks the anniversary of Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech. And I think what an incredible day, what an incredible moment in time that we get to record this podcast on the day that Dr. King had the I Have a Dream speech.
Yes, it's a very symbolic day on so many levels. I have family and friends there actually in DC right now celebrating that moment and just the energy around it. So I'm definitely proud to be, here today in this time and for our country to be celebrating, so many people to be celebrating the life and legacy of Dr. King.
And I would say that it is an honor also to be here with you today and to be reflecting back on Dr. King's legacy and to be able to bring these stories out in the forefront here. I think that Dr. King would appreciate and support that we are bringing visibility and stories that really matter to everyone, especially to the financial services. So what an honor to be able to share your story today, Velera Wilson. And what an exciting story that this is going to be. Ladies, you are in for a real treat. If you don't know Velera, right now she is the director of marketing for Fiserv, and she's been there for now 3 years. And let me just tell you about Velera because she's a pretty amazing woman here. So Velera is a speaker. She's an author. She's a coach that has almost 20 years of leading marketing strategy and driving revenue for Fortune 100 and 500 brands. Now she's taking it to an entirely different level, and she's helping ambitious women lead with confidence in their careers, their relationships, and everyday life. And here's the drum roll, ladies and gentlemen. Her latest book, You're Absolutely Worth It, is coming out in September. I think that you have the official date for that as well.
Yes, September 29th, 2020.
By the time that this podcast goes live, that it will be only weeks away, but we're going to also share in our show notes and in our discussion today how you can get the book, the great thing of what it includes. The book, You're Absolutely Worth It. She's been a contributing writer now on Thrive Global. Velera's been talking about women's issues. She's also written a guide on 6 steps to negotiate the salary you deserve without letting fear override. And if you're following Velera right now on Twitter, that she's been even reading certain chapters, segments from the book that you'll find pretty amazing. And this is all real life stuff, ladies, that we need in our careers and our everyday life. Velera is a big believer in paying it forward. That's why she's here in the suite with us today. She's a mentor to other women through the American Marketing Association, through National Black MBA Association, and others across the country. She's a true giver. She resides in Atlanta with her husband. And what an amazing day and experience to have you here in the suite to talk about your upcoming book, You're Absolutely Worth It.
Yes, absolutely worth it.
So why don't we begin there now? You're Absolutely Worth It. The subtitle is to release self-doubt, embrace confidence, and own your yes. What can you tell us about the inspiration behind writing a book like this?
Sure. So it's been a long journey to get to write the book, right? I get to write the book, and it's come from my own periods in time of my life when I was not confident and I did not know what my self-worth was. Yes, I've done driven strategy. Yes, I've been able to move around the country multiple times, leading teams for global companies, but that is so far from where I started. I started with a teenage mom. I started with living in a small 2-bedroom apartment with her and my grandmother, and we're sharing a room. I started as being the first in my family to graduate 4-year university. So my start was not this great landing pad, right? I was loved tremendously and given a lot of support and positive affirmations from my family. But when I went out into the big world of graduating from college and figured out life, I really wasn't quite sure of who I was and where I really fit in. Things that even happened early on in my own childhood that were traumatic for me really started, they all kind of meshed together to have me to question, well, what am I really worth? What can I really ask for? I was always tentative, hesitant, afraid to ask, afraid to seem like I wasn't the smart one in the meeting or in the room, afraid to what I would ask for in a relationship. So I just hid a lot. I hid and I shrunk. And so as I moved throughout my career and been able to have some amazing opportunities, I thought that, I've come across so many women, and they may not look like me, or they might even look like me, but this swirl of sentiment that was familiar. And it was that resounding question of, well, am I enough? Or can I really ask for that? Whether it be a promotion or the funding for the business. What would they think if I do this? It's just that swirl of self-doubt, those times of hesitation, right? Really overthinking it. And so it became really important to me as I continue to do the work on me and continue to grow my career, my own life, to just share a message with other women that says, listen, you have wild dreams and goals, huge ambitions. And sometimes we believe that we can't or we won't be able to do something. And it's either because of the noise in our own heads or the noise that someone's given to us, our own mistakes. And it's exactly that, it's noise. And so I wanted to write a book that tells that woman, you can and you will, because you're absolutely worth it, and stop doubting yourself. So that was the message that I really want to share with so many other women.
Wow. Well, first of all, I think that it's amazing because hearing from someone like you, and this is the thing that I pick up on. I mean, you have a really impressive vitae here. You got a BS from University of California. You have an MBA. You have worked for some really top brands, AT&T, Verifone. Now you're at Fiserv. And to hear that someone like you even has just an iota or even just an atom of doubt in some circumstances, for me, I think is so refreshing, and your story is so inspiring. Why do you think that we struggle with that doubt and that other and the voices that sometimes come into our mind when they really shouldn't?
It's interesting you say that, because I think that's what I started to realize, is that you're right. We have all these accomplishments, these accolades, these achievements, but we know imposter syndrome is very real. And it's always telling us that, well, despite what you've accomplished, that maybe you really don't deserve the achievement or the accolades or the recognition or the compensation for it, right? And so really that's all about doubting your value. And I was coming across that when I would meet female founders, corporate execs, recent college graduates. But at the end of the day, it's never the pretty stuff to talk about. We like to talk about bottom line, and we like to talk about accomplishments, particularly when you're talking about showing up at work in corporate America, right? It's got to put your face on, got to put your game face on, got to go, do. And that's great. But at the end of the day, who we are internally is what's going to drive our external success. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it sounds pretty or not. We can choose to not talk about it, but I choose to talk about it because it's very real. And I've talked to enough women who say, yeah, I struggle with believing that I'm qualified and gifted enough. But here's where I think it comes from. And I talk about this in my book. I term it she influencers. And these are the forces, internal or external, that contribute to either propelling or hindering you in your life. And the she stands for what you saw, what you heard, and what you experienced. And if you really think about it in your life, your self-perception has a root cause. Your desire or fear to ask for something has a root cause. And so I explore that in the first part of the book. It's great to tell people to do, women, hey, do this, you can achieve this, but let's talk about why you don't think you can achieve that. Let's talk about why. And it goes back to those she influencers. What did you see growing up? What did you hear growing up? What did you hear people say about you? What information stuck about you, about life, about what you could ask for? Some of it's cultural, some of it's racial, some of it's very real traumatic experiences, but they all serve to contribute to that noise. And so I think it's really important for us to really go back to the root and why we think certain things, so that we can address the root, just like with anything else. You address the root in your, if you have a bad tree, you got to pull up the root in order for whatever. So I think that there's a lot of reasons, but they go back to those very things. Either what happened in childhood, what happened in your adulthood, in your career, in your personal life, or in relationships.
The internal absolutely drives the external, and you can't address the problem until you know the root of the problem. And that's the way to actually untangle yourself and shut up that voice that finds its way into our head occasionally. And more often than not, sometimes when we wish that it wouldn't show up, but it does. It shows up in everyone, men included too. But to your point, really looking at what did you see, what did you hear, and that E was expect. What was
what did you experience?
What you experienced. What an incredible framework that is. That is really, that's pivotal here for that she framework, and how apropos that it is exactly the she pronoun all spelled out. Once that we identify what we see, what we heard, and what our experience is are there any additional strategies that we can, share with women here in the suite to get over this big hurdle? Because to your point, the internal conversation is driving the external result.
The first thing I think is you got to acknowledge that it's there. Be honest that it's there. And then you got to start asking the whys. Why is it there? Why do I think this? And I liken it to a child, right? As soon as you tell them no, they ask why. And then when you tell them that answer, they ask why again sometimes, right? And so I think we have to start asking, like, let me challenge that. Why do I believe this? And is this really true? Is it tested and proven to be true that this is true about what I might think? For example, it could be, hey, why do I think I'm not qualified for that promotion? And then when you get your answer, why do I think that? And you continue to go down this spiral of questions until you really get down to it and say, maybe I'm assuming that, or maybe I'm letting fear drive my assumptions. And so it's really about getting to the root of asking why. And then to your point, I think the other part of it is recognizing, I say this all the time because it's true, I think it's absolutely true, is that sometimes we think that the fear is the truth. We think that when we fear something, that there's a truth behind that fear. And sometimes it's really it's not a truth. It's just an indicator that there's something is unknown to us or new to us. It's a new territory. It's going to require our growth, a stretching in a way that might be uncomfortable. So I always say that fear is not necessarily a truth. It's an indicator. It's an indicator of something bigger beyond ourselves that we have to just say, okay, what is it that I'm really wrestling with here? And then how do I navigate through that?
And some of that is linked to our brain, right? The amygdala, I think I'm pronouncing it correctly. I hope so. If I'm not,
I know what you said.
Our lizard brain that automatically reacts. So here's what I've noticed is that if you had a situation or trauma early on in your life, and we talked about this with Eugene George, who gave us a whole lesson on trauma, which was quite interesting, actually. And not the beauty of it is discovering that all of us have had some sort of trauma. Even the most successful people in the world have had really underlying difficult circumstances and challenges that they've had to deal with. And so what happens later in life is that your brain automatically fires off a certain emotion because you're in a certain situation that reminds you of something where you were in a previous time in your life. And so that emotionality, that fear feels so real, like what we are just talking about, because you've got the chemistries, your fight or flight response is automatically activated by that mechanism.
Very true. So true.
I do want to direct everyone here on the episode today how you can get the book. And I am proud to say that I am part of your squad. And and Velera, you've done, I would expect nothing less from you from a marketing superstar here. You've done an amazing job with the whole workflow and the identity. It looks really fantastic. You're going to go to www.velerawilson.com. Absolutely worth it. So I'm going to just spell that out for you. That's Velera Wilson, VELERAWILSON.com. And it's absolutely worth it. One word. And we'll have a link to the show notes. What would be your ideal outcome? In marketing, you and I are both marketers, and we always have to reverse engineer for the goal that we're trying to achieve. But what does success mean or look like for you with the launch of this book?
Sure. My idea of success is that every woman that's been holding back, hesitating, saying no to herself, or we'll see, or I don't know, would get the book, read it, and get a flame lit under her in a good way that gives her the confidence, the courage to move forward, and gives her that permission to be fearless. That something in her just breaks to where the boundaries that she's previously put on herself really are released, and that she gives herself the ability and the permission to thrive.
And why do you think that you've been able to do it? You talked and you shared about an incredible story of growing up with your mother and your grandmother and how is it? I look at a vitae like yours, Velera, and I see a woman of high achievement. I see the road, the path up and to success. How were you able to do it?
A faith-filled mother and grandmother. That's the source of everything. I would dare not lie and say, but that foundation of my life, my family's life is faith. And so at the end of the day, just believing that that I have a greater purpose and that I was put here on earth for a certain plan, and that regardless of the obstacles, regardless of what has happened or will happen, that I will be just fine, that I would do whatever it is that I was put here to do. And then I think the other thing is just that something that happens when you go through challenging situations, not just me or anyone, is that you either build resistance or you break. It's one of the two, right? It's just whether you break makes you stronger, right? And so I think just, not having it all easy or not having everything handed to me has built a sort of a resilience and resourcefulness to just get it done, to figure it out, and to just believe that, hey, something's got to give. I'm going to make something happen and figure out how to do it.
You're queen of these one-liners. I don't know if it's the marketing in you, right? You either build resistance or you break. Wow. I feel like putting that on a t-shirt right now. You either build resistance or you break. That's so powerful. And what a way to say it. And you've worked for some really cool brands. And you've worked for both Fortune 100, Fortune 500, including AT&T, where you worked for almost 7 years. You've been a lead marketing manager. You've been business customer care manager. What was that experience like? You've had Fiserv, you have telecom here, financial services. So what was the experience of working for AT&T during that time?
I joined the company under their leadership development program. So it basically was an acceleration program for what they considered high potential candidates. And I think it was a great experience. It was a phenomenal ride. I had a chance to, as I mentioned, move around the country multiple times, lead teams in different business units, drive some great results. And that's actually how I ended up in Atlanta. And I would say it was great because I got a chance to learn so many things about myself as a leader. I got a chance to learn so many things about building teams, building trust, building relationships, and managing. I just got a world of experience. And I think the biggest thing for me is that I just jumped in and got my hands dirty, right? I was always walking into completely new situations. I was moving to a new city, for one. I was leading a team in a business unit I knew nothing about, for two. I was learning 20 different personalities, three. And in most cases, if not all, everyone was at least 15 years my senior, right? So you throw all that stuff in there. I was the young whippersnapper at different times, even though I wasn't young. And it really taught me how to courageously lead and to learn and how to listen and how to figure out how to drive results in unknown situations. And so I think that has served me really, really well, even in marketing, right? In marketing, I put on so many hats from my previous life's work in different industries to do it well. I'm not just a marketer, I'm a process person. I'm not just a marketer, I'm an operations person. I'm not just a marketer, I'm a project manager. So I've had to do all those things. And I truly believe that your previous experiences lead you to be successful in your next. And I think that's what's happened.
I would agree with that. You talk to us a little bit about the relocation and the ability to say yes, to undertake stretch assignments when you can't really see what you're signing up for. And I think that it takes a lot of courage to do it. But from what we've heard from all women in the suite, it is saying yes. I think Cheryl Nash said this the best, right? Is that I said, oh, she had worked like every single job in the organization. I said, like, did you get a change of job description? Did you get to change your role every time? And she's like, no, not necessarily. It's not necessarily. And she said, but I always said yes. And I think it takes a special kind of person to always say yes. I don't know if it's the Fiserv environment or what, that just like empowers women to just, hey, everyone listening right now, say yes.
Absolutely. I definitely agree with you there.
And I'm so glad that you touched upon marketing in a way that gives us credit where credit is due, in the fact that we are coming up with processes, we are having to manage operations, project management. You don't undertake any type of marketing initiative or anything that's going to move a needle without having some operational capacity around you and architecture. So I'm so glad that you brought it up, because it's more than just building the brand. It's building the people, the teams, the processes, everything that goes around the brand to bring it all together. So environment like we are right now, Velera, the playbook that we used to have no longer exists. So what would you say about that from a marketing perspective? How have you been able to engineer the unknown?
Oh gosh, well, I think we're all in this environment, we're all figuring it out. And I think it just, the biggest thing is just being flexible. Staying flexible, being open to changes, because we all are, and particularly in our industry, we're serving oftentimes business owners who also have to change right now. And so it's really learning how to navigate and quickly come up with solutions that really could be helpful at the 12th hour, and still being able to deliver, but knowing that it's for the greater good. And so I think that puts it in perspective, is that, hey, I'm not just executing a marketing campaign, I'm executing something that's going to help someone else stay in business. So put it in a bigger context, but most importantly, being flexible.
What have you noticed right now about women? I know through your coaching, you're able to interact with women at a variety of levels, right? You're the Fortune 500 and the Fortune 100 and the small entrepreneurial women. Is the size of the company predicting what women are struggling with? Or do you see something right now across the board that just, regardless of the size of their organization, that this is what a lot of women are dealing with right now?
You know, environment obviously and definitely can play a big role in what us as women deal with. But the macro picture is that we're all, in most cases, I won't say all, in most cases, we are not being equally paid or promoted, right? So we're not represented both on the equally on the scales. And so I think that has been seen in a lot of ways. And hopefully that will continue to change and improve over time, particularly for women of color. I think all those things are huge initiatives and important right now. And I always look at it from two perspectives. It's from both the organizational perspective and then the individual perspective. And so I think even in writing the book, I focus tremendously and solely on the individual, because you can only change you. You cannot change. You can try to change an organization or institution, but the first person you have to change is you, because you go wherever you go. And so I just refuse to believe that the organization will drive my personal success or my purpose. And that's the faith part of me talking. But yes, reality is that there are ceilings. All of these things are very, very real. And so in light of all of that, what do I do? What do we do as women with our own respective dreams and goals? How do we navigate? How do we say yes to ourselves? How do we paint our own picture of success in our minds? Does it mean I have to be this person's organization in order to be successful? Or do I create my vision for what life looks like for me? And so that's where, to me, it's saying yes to yourself. And that's what it really means.
I would expect that. I love it. You go wherever you go. You remind us of a really important fact, and that is that some women, it goes back to even one of your earlier things about building that resilience and that perseverance. You can build that resistance and that grit to stay where you are, but after a while, if the organization isn't giving you what you want, have the strength to walk away and say, you know what, I'm absolutely worth it.
Absolutely. And that is it's actually some examples that I write in the book, is that sometimes I've seen this happen a lot of times, is that particularly when you don't know your worth. And I say you as in me, my own personal experiences first off, is that when we don't know what our value is, we stay someplace sometimes past its expiration date. we stay there trying to convince them that we're good enough, smart enough, talented enough, if they just saw me do this. And the reality is that sometimes they may never see you as enough, right? The organization may just not be set up that way, or that business unit may just not be set up that way, or there might be legitimately not opportunities right now when you want them, right? So I always say there's a difference between a reason and an excuse, and we have to be wise enough to discern the difference, right? Because a reason could be real. An excuse, I don't need your excuses. So, but I think realistically is that sometimes we'll stay and we'll hope and we hope and we hope, and we do the work, we put our heads down, and we start to lose time that we can't get back. We start to lose our edge in some respects because we're not pushing ourselves for better. And I like to say, sometimes you just got to know when it's time to go. What's that Kenny Rogers song? You got to know when to fold.
There we go. I know. You got to know when it's time to go.
Know when it's time to walk away.
Exactly. Right? Know when to walk away.
Yeah. I wasn't going to sing it, see, but I'm glad you did.
Okay, karaoke comes to in the suite. Yeah, well, look, I mean, we had Black Women's Pay Day on August 13th, right? Mm-hmm. And it's a reminder that if you're not getting what you want, that you need to negotiate and that you are the champion of your own success. I've always said to people too, and this goes along the lines of some of what you're saying, if you don't keep track of your success, nobody else is going to do it for you.
That's correct.
Exactly. Nobody else, your manager isn't going to come on your next review. Well, I've been looking at all these great things that you're doing. And you owe it to yourself to both qualify and quantify the results of what you have been doing. And that growth is so important, right? Those stretch assignments, because that's where you're going to start to create now a story around how you've helped to increase the business, how you've tried to reduce costs, how you built other people. And it is about knowing when the time to go is the time to go. You know it. Let's face it. You know it because you're not even driven internally to say, oh, yes, that new thing they're doing, sign me up. You start shrinking. You're not really interested. You're not devoting. You don't bring your whole self. That's what you really feel.
Absolutely. And it's so unfortunate when you think in comparison to the amount of time, energy, money we often spend to educate ourselves, get skillful, and then to just kind of simmer, if you will, in one space. It's hard. And of course, for different reasons, we may choose to do that in different seasons of our lives, but that can't be a lifelong strategy or approach. And so I really think about it from the perspective of am I in the driver's seat of my life, or am I going to give someone else the keys and let them drive it? And I think it's our responsibility, particularly when we think about what's important to us, to say, I should be owning my own plans, my own development, my own growth, and go where I am celebrated, where I'm supported, where I am accepted or given the opportunities to advance and grow. And if that's not happening, then just know, okay, this isn't the place, or I've reached my end here, and it's okay.
So what kind of strategies would you have what would you say to that woman right now? What are the first things that she needs to do to move her life positively and in a forward direction?
Sure. I think the first thing is, hey, it's maybe time for me to make a change in my career. I think you have to start with maybe an assessment, an audit of what is it that you really want? What is it that you want to do next? What are your aspirations? Because I think ultimately you have to get the goal in mind, and that will drive the action plan and the steps that you'll take. And from there, you can figure out, well, are there some gaps in my skills that I need to work on in order to take advantage of this next opportunity, be positioned for the next opportunity? So for example, is it I need to go get a certification, or I need to take a certain class, or maybe I need to get maybe just a little bit of skills in something else that maybe I don't have now so that I can get to that next. And even with that, I would say to be patient with self, because sometimes you might say, oh gosh, there's a big gap between where I want to be and where I am. And that's fine. It's called time and it's called work. So think about what you have to do and realistically, how long might it take for you to get there? So maybe put some timelines in place for you. So that's why we always say, what's your 1-year plan? What's your 3-year plan? What's your 5-year plan? So put it in perspective so that you don't feel like you're defeating yourself if it doesn't happen right away.
That's a really good, important point, to make sure that you're not expecting too much of yourself, because change is difficult. And even just thinking about making a change can set off a whole host of emotions, right? Your mind can go down.
Absolutely. And I think the other part of it is to maybe step outside of yourself for a minute, because we can think a lot of things, but it's so good to get maybe a 360 assessment or external perspective. So that's where your network or your allies of people that you know can help you. Or if you say, I don't really have that group of people just yet, it might be a career coach to really help you to figure out, how do you develop that next? How do you position yourself? What's that plan look like to get there? And hold yourself accountable to those time frames. But most importantly, get some external perspective, because what I found is oftentimes when you start doing that assessment and then you say, okay, here's the gaps, or I know I'm ready now, and I'm ready to look for that. You need people to help you. I always say, sometimes we try to go it alone. Don't try to do that. If you can avoid it, tap into your network. Don't be too proud. Don't be too, sometimes I know that I think this at times I have to just stop. And I found this even when promoting the book, is that you think, well, people are busy, I don't want to bother them, or you think all these things. No. Ask. You do not know unless you ask. So let your people know. Raise your hand and say, hey, I'm looking for this opportunity. I am considering this. Do you know anyone, or do you have time to talk to me about how you think I can position myself to get there? Why go alone if you can go so much faster and further with people? And that's what I have found consistently, right? What they say, your network is your net worth. And a woman that I love in my network, Stephanie Foster, who's a master networker.
Stephanie Foster is the queen, and God bless her right now. I know she's going to be listening to this episode. Yes. She's done amazing deeds in her life. And boy, bringing people together, bringing women together is one of them.
And just a great example of building your network. A lot of the opportunities that I have found have come through the people that I know. And so don't be afraid to ask. I think that's so important. And then I think the last thing is really to focus on your brand. It's really, what do you want to be known for? Sometimes we forget that in the process of looking, but our brand is really what's going to strengthen our network. When people know what we do and see our work or see what we're about, they're quicker and to recommend us for opportunities or to tell us. So I think that's really the steps is first is do an assessment, get that external support or help to develop those timelines, and also to help you look for what your next is.
So I want to break down I want to concentrate on two of the areas that you were just talking about, the whole idea of personal branding and going and tapping into that network. And now you have been involved with the National Black MBA Association. Now you have been a mentor over a year now, and perhaps that someone listening right now can join the National Black MBA Association and find, like a Velera Wilson, find someone like you to basically to help them and to tell them what to do next and to work with them, because to your point, you can't nor should you do it alone. Can you talk to us a little bit about what the National Black MBA Association, who it's for, how somebody gets involved from both the mentee and the mentor perspective?
Sure. So first of all, the organization has played a huge role in my career. Actually, the first opportunity that I got, my big corporate role, came as a result of attending the National Black MBA Conference, which is an annual conference they do, and where they bring together really like global brands, usually Fortune 1 to 500 brands that are looking to hire MBA candidates and graduates. And also it's filled with days of thought leadership and educational sessions, networking, the whole deal. So definitely loved the organization and really felt it was time for me to turn around and help someone else. And so here, there's chapters nationally. So if someone is interested, they certainly can reach out and say that they're interested in being a mentor. There's definitely a need for them. And I had an amazing opportunity to be a mentor this past year to a woman who was in, kind of early to mid stages of her career, but really needed a game plan, right? In terms of how to really confidently ask for what she wanted, show up in meetings, develop that executive presence. And so we really worked on those things. And interesting enough, she shared some really positive feedback with the organization as a result of our time together. So I think that's really what it's all about for me.
And you can even be a Black MBA candidate and be part of that organization. And normally for student membership, they probably even to give a little bit of a discount for. Right. Yeah. So that's really great. Okay. So we're going to have a link in the show notes for the National Black MBA Association. And you're also still a mentor at the American Marketing Association. Again, a core part of what you do. And what I'm hearing from is that you've benefited from being from mentorship, and that you're paying it forward, which is truly
absolutely
admirable.
I think the more we share, I think it's so important to just share what you know, because again, that's another reason why I wrote the book is why hold what you know when someone else could use that information and go so much faster and avoid unnecessary pitfalls, detours, delays, all those things. And my father said this at one point. He said, some things in life are just best as being a guided tour, as opposed to you just going through them yourself. Let someone help you guide you through that. And I think it's true. Sometimes we can just help people with the little bit of information that we know. And so I think it's important to just share.
That's really great. Well, again, a big plug for the book, because no need to go out on it alone, or even have your own personal guided tour in the form of the book. And so, will it be available in audio form as well? So it will be, it's paperback, it's online.
Right now it's paperback and it is Kindle version. The audio version is not available just yet. So stay tuned for that.
Good. Awesome. Really looking forward to that. So let's talk about what you were speaking about, and that is the need for women to be visible and to have that presence. And you have an amazing personal brand, Velera. And also you're a marketer. So we would expect that. And then there are other women who are listening to the podcast that may not have the marketing core competency to build that personal brand. And yet you and I know that it is so, so important. And I thought that you and I would talk about some of the strategies for building a personal brand when you're not a marketer and when you're more of an introvert. Do you have any recommendations on where we could guide people in the right direction? Squad members like us who are in marketing, we would be happy to help.
Exactly.
So you have a strong brand presence on Twitter and on LinkedIn, and you're also on Instagram. You have a really cool handle, A Positive ID, APOSITIVEID. And you're so positive. And this whole environment right now has been really challenging. And so it's refreshing to see something positive in the feed. And so I think, where's the baseline? Where do women go if you're not such of a marketer for building that personal brand?
I think the first thing is when you think about brand, it's really what is it that you want to be known for? Sometimes we try to make it more complicated. And it's all it is what do you want to be known for? What are you good at? What do you enjoy? What do you want people to know you as when they think of you. And so sit down and think about that, right? And so for me, it's being a marketing leader, right? The other piece of that is me being a purpose-driven woman who loves to see other ambitious women lead with confidence. So everything that I promote, everything that I talk about, everything that you see on my social media feeds, for example, will be in those two lanes. Sure, it'll be funny stuff and it'll be, personality, but that's my brand. And so I think it's important just to think, well, for a woman who says, well, I'm not really an extrovert, I'm not all these things. Here's newsflash. I'm not either. I'm definitely an introvert with extrovert tendencies. That's what I say. We call it an ambivert.
Wow.
I'm an ambivert. I am perfectly fine being by myself and just in my thoughts. And yes, I'm a marketing person, but depending on who you are, the struggle can be real for promoting yourself, for promoting what you're doing. And so I think, again, go back to what it is that you want to be known for, write that down, and then think about what you can share that gives people that inkling or that indication that that's who you are, whether it be an article that you read, whether it be an event that you attended, whether it be something that you can provide insight into when people connect with you. What pieces of information can you give them? That's really what the brand is all about.
Yeah, and I think that you give a great example of it. On everyone listening, you should definitely follow Velera on social media to see the examples of an ambivert, because you've used photography, you've used personal branding, and I think like Instagram is I think both Instagram and Twitter, where content is more like short form, more micro content than having to worry. And I understand, and we both get it. Like, not everybody wants to be on Facebook. Right. That's okay. We as marketers are on Facebook, and everyone right now has to have a LinkedIn presence. But at least I think the way to ladder into that personal branding strategy is just start to even comment and like what other people are posting. And I like what you're posting. Again, Velera's Twitter, which is, your Instagram, which is absolutely beautiful, a positive ID, and you can follow Velera there. And on your Twitter, I think this is a great example too, that I know you recently spoke to Manhattan Associates, and you spoke to them. They invited you to talk about the book, and that you thanked them publicly on Twitter, which is great. Again, these are great use cases for social media in a way that you just want to, just by you liking stuff and commenting and thanking and doing what you would normally do, like in an email. That's the first step, right? Just get out there and don't be afraid. It takes nothing to just like something, add a comment, reshare a post. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very easy. If you talk about it from a social perspective, like you said, just it's social media for a reason, right? It's social. Be a little sociable. You don't have to show everything that you're doing. Again, it can be brand tailored, right? Show people what you want them to know. Leave the rest at home, right? So, like you said, like and comment on things. Post something that's of interest to you that really reflects who you are as a person, both personally or professionally. And, and then even in person, offline, right? What do people get when they see you? I think that's even more important, right? What do people see when they get you in person? What's your energy? What's your attitude? I think all those things become important. And I will say, from a branding perspective, it relates back to work as well. And you don't have to be an extrovert. I'm a testament to this. At the end of the day, I really believe that when you really start to look at yourself and say, I am not perfect, but I deliver value wherever I go, that's the foundation for your confidence. And that attitude will start to show up in your work, your emails, your projects, your interactions with others. You walk into a room and you say, I may not be the smartest person in here, but I bring value. I'm in this room for a reason. And so that's really the foundation for your brand. Brands deliver value, right? You're a marketing person, you know this, right? Brands deliver value, and they convince you of the value that they bring, which is why we all need the next version of the iPhone, right? Because it's got some value. Right?
For sure.
So,
Absolutely.
and it's the same way. It's in person. I deliver value to you, Tina. You deliver value to me. And so that's the brand that you protrude and that you portray when you walk into rooms. And that's what people start to associate you with.
So I want to just pick up on something you said. It's so deep, and it's a repetitive theme of, what we want to be known for is having the answer to that question, because whether or not that it's your book or whether or not it's your Instagram or you showing up somewhere, it is, what do you want to be known for? So Velera Wilson, what do you want to be known for?
Oh, I wasn't ready for that question, right?
I wasn't ready to tell it, but I was like, oh my gosh, like you're just,
I said it earlier, actually. I want to be known as a marketing leader, as a strategic marketing leader. And first and foremost, superseding any and all things, and just in my career, is that to be a purpose-filled woman who really believes in helping other purpose-filled and ambitious women really get out of their shells and lead their lives with confidence. That's what I want to be known for.
Well, you're already succeeding, because just the fact that I'm in your squad, yes, by being in your squad, I did get a copy of the book, which I'm just so excited. I just started reading it. So I think a lot of the wisdom, these are themes that resonate with me, because you've distilled it down to like real life. And I think that it's a manual that you yourself have used. And these are, I love to be reading things that are real. So that's great advice. And if you want to be part of Velera Squad too, you can get the book, and you can follow Velera on Twitter, because she's putting a lot of positive themes out in the industry, which I think are really important for women as we struggle with the unknown, as we build our personal brands, as we negotiate for our worth, because we are absolutely worth it. So what's the best way for people to get a hold of you,
Sure.
Velera?
So I'm on pretty much all social media channels as a true marketer that I am. I'm not on TikTok though, but I'm on exactly right. I gotta get some videos out there, but I'm on LinkedIn, Velera Wilson, as well as on Twitter, Velera Wilson, and then on Instagram and Facebook at a positive ID. And then, of course, yes. And if you want to grab the book, I think, Tina, you already shared the link.
Yeah. And we also, we end the podcast realizing that all women here in the suite have an occasion when they need to bring their absolutely worth it self to a situation that they're negotiating, that is some sort of a real stretch for them. And we all use, either it's a mantra, or it could be something physical, or something that you wear. We've heard all kinds of amazing stories from amazing women. And so we'd like to ask that question. What is it that you use that makes you feel absolutely worth it when you're in the suite?
Really two things. So the first one, my number one go-to is prayer. It's absolutely my number one go-to. I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge and admit that, because I tap into a greater source, realizing that I've got some things to do here on earth. And, I'm being backed by a greater source than me. And then the second one is I have fallen in love with bold, colorful suits and outfits. I used to subscribe to that whole dark suits early in my career because I thought I needed to fit in and, walk the line. And now I'm sure my mother would be happy because she loves bold colors. And I've just fallen in love with bold colors. So a power red suit, a bright bold pink suit, yellow suit, anything that's not the traditional status quo, because I don't want to fit in. I want to be me. I want to be what makes me feel confident and powerful. And that does.
Well, I love it. And I would say that the cover of the book is gorgeous. It just looks so, so beautiful. So congratulations on the book. Thank you so, so much, Velera, for sharing your wisdom and your insights. I think you have an incredible story here. We can't wait to share it in the suite. We can't And so ladies listening, thank you so much, Velera. Thank you so much for listening to especially today's broadcast.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tina. I appreciate you supporting me and, being a part of the Hype Squad as well and allowing me to come on today and talk with the audience.
You're listening to In the Suite, a podcast that shares amazing stories of women in business and the financial services and the wealth management industry. Our producers for today's episode are Tina Powell and Kevin Hirshorn. Our editor at large is Kevin Hirshorn. Our content writers are Simone Brathwaite, Carmen Varner, and Tina Powell. And our research and technical assistants are Rachel Powell and Natika Upridi. In the Suite podcast is sponsored by C-Suite Social Media, a digital marketing and social media agency for C-Suite leaders and brands in finance and technology. You can visit csuitesocialmedia.com to learn more and for show notes from today's broadcast with links to purchase Velera's book, you're absolutely worth it. Don't forget, the first 5 people to email me at tina@csuitesocialmedia.com will receive a free copy, so hurry up. And while you're there, please let others know how you enjoyed this episode with Velera Wilson and share your thoughts on LinkedIn and Twitter, #InTheSuite. I would love it, and it would mean so much if you left us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or where you listen to this amazing episode with Velera Wilson. You can follow her at Twitter at Velera Wilson and Instagram at @ApositiveID, all one word. And always, if you would like to share the name of a successful woman in financial services we should interview, please send it to me at tina@csuitesocialmedia.com. We will be happy to add her to our amazing list. And thank you again so much for listening and subscribing to In the Suite.